Are we audible here?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, sir. You can go ahead, sir. Okay, I think Daniel has something to say.
I think we should start the program, otherwise it is going to be very late.
Yes, we can start. For your presentation slide, give me about 5 minutes to load it up, please. You can start.
Yeah,
I will join
will
you.
Nikki ma'am start it, or Rex? I think Rex should introduce this, and then I can start.
Okay, good.
Rex, can you hear us? Rex, I think Nikki ma'am is also not there. Joseph,
Yes, she's
can
still
you?
trying to join.
Yeah, or should we? Yes, Rex, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
So why don't you start? It is going to be very late otherwise. 85 participants are there. At least start it.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, you are supposed to do the introduction, Dr. Kundu. You're supposed to do the introduction, Dr. Kundu, because that falls on your purview. Unless you want me to take your place, sir.
Sorry?
You are the one doing introduction to NVC and SL.
Who is going to introduce?
You are taking the first course.
Yeah, but I thought you will be telling a little bit about the background of this course that we're
Yes,
starting, or you want me to do it?
Okay, no problem. Let me
yes,
quickly go ahead. No problem. Thinking that you will be there. So I'm just going to, good morning, everyone, fellow Rotarians and guests, friends, and well-wishers. I happily welcome you into today's course of non-violent communication and servant leadership. It is a great opportunity for all of us to share, to learn, unlearn, and to relearn. So having said this, I will quickly delve into the creative strategies to implement non-violent communication and servant leadership. But first of all, I want to define what is non-violent communication. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. We all can hear you, sir.
Okay. Non-violent communication is a process of communicating without showing all those offensive mechanisms, either by gesture or your facial outlook or being inflicting a physical injury. So once you are talking, you need to be friendly, you need to be cordial, you need to be very attentive, you need to be empathic, you need to be very sensible and friendly when you are talking to people so that they will appreciate what you are saying. So with this, you have to, it's like when you are talking to people, not because you're a leader, you start using harsh words on them, or you start giving them commanding notes or voices. So you need to be cordial, by extension, to maintain a cordial relationship, despite you are the leader or the led. Then for you to be a servant, you have to follow rules, lay down procedures. You have to be loyal. You have to be a listening personality. Your charisma is such a way that you can absorb and you can also represent. You can also attain to delegated powers. So having said this, I will now move into proper approaches, strategies that you deploy during a non-violent communication and servant leadership. So without much ado, I will be moving into the common people that we have some scholars like Nelson Mandela, we have Mahatma Gandhi, we have also somebody like Rutherford. We have also even Goodluck Jonathan of Nigeria. These are the people that I'm going to use their model today. So Mahatma Gandhi nonviolent communication stems in the fact that nonviolent conflict can be restored or can be resolved through training. You can also do self-sufficient and a community of villages. You can also do grassroots social change. You can also do empathy-based educational programs. You can also deploy Gandhi's peace marches. The one I said now is the one provided by Mahatma Gandhi, nonviolent communication device or model. They call it in India Ahisma and empathy. So let me repeat myself again. The model of Mahatma Gandhi uses nonviolent resolution training. He uses self-sufficient community villages. He uses grassroots social change. He also uses empathy-based educational program. And finally, he uses peace marches. He used peace. These are the techniques that he used. Then we'll move on to Rutherford. The model that he used is called humanistic approach. Rutherford used empathy-based education, critical thinking, and self-awareness workshops. Rutherford also used community mental health programs. He used also humanistic leadership development. And finally, he uses inspired community engagement. He engaged the communities during his own model to attain non-violent communication and servant leadership. Now, for the Nigerian past president, Goodluck Jonathan, he used dialogue and reconciliation. He deployed interfaith dialogue forum, community reconciliation workshops, youth leadership development program, and traditional leader engagement initiatives. He equally used national peace to attain his own non-violence communication. I will now go into other holistic approaches for non-violent communication and servant leadership. In doing this, you must be mindful. You must be data-based, you must be naturally based, and also technological enhanced. You must be creative. You must be good in storytelling. You must be also artistic. You must have that charisma to be able to tell story, and also music. You can use also music therapy. You can as well deploy community engagement. You can as well employ social media campaigns and collaborative partnership. For the servant leadership strategy, you have to do empowerment and delegation. As I said earlier, you must be active in listening and also giving feedback. You must foster a culture of trust. You must also have the charisma to lead by example. You must be prioritizing your community needs instead of wants. Then we have key principles that you also deploy. Number one is empathy and understanding, nonviolence and compassion, mutual respect and trust, inclusive and diversity, also community empowerment. A nonviolent communication strategy, you convert challenges into solutions. By doing this, number one, you resist the change, you engage stakeholders and build trust. Number two, your limited resources must be effectively used. You seek for partnership and grants. Thirdly, cultural differences, adapt to approaches, and also ensure cultural sensitivity. So we have also implementing roadmap. The roadmap needs assessment and planning. It can take you 3 months, 4 months, 2 months, depending on your capability and your capacity. Your pilot program launch can take up to 6 months. Evaluation and scaling up can be 9 months. Community ownership and leadership development can be up to a year or a year and 6 months, depending on your capacity and your capability of implementing a program. Then, while doing this, you must be mindful of your budget. You must budget for your personnel and training. You budget for the program implementation. You budget for community engagement. You also budget for evaluation and monitoring, because they are very, very key. If you don't monitor, you won't have a feedback and you won't know how to go front or back. So by integrating these creative strategies, you can effectively implement nonviolent communication and servant leadership by promoting social change, conflict resolution, and community empowerment. So having said this, I will relax and entertain your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Rex. Thank you to everybody. I think we had some challenges, but at the same time, it's also a good thing because the session, your training over the next 3 sessions will be on nonviolent communication. So I can imagine that all of us were getting like really frustrated because the Zoom was long. So maybe it's a good thing because now we're going to learn how do we respond when things aren't going 100%. But thank you so much for your patience. Warmest welcome to everybody. Thank you for taking the time to be part of this. And after the 3 sessions, we know that you'll be able to introduce this in your own communities. So Dr. Vedabas, are you ready? Dr. Vedabas?
I am ready. I am ready.
Okay, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. And I would apologize to all the wonderful participants here today. Unfortunately, there is a little bit of problem in my throat, a little choked, but that's fine. I am energetic, and I really look forward to this wonderful session and such a huge number of participants who are seriously interested to understand the ideas of nonviolent communication and most importantly practice in their daily lives and in starting from themselves in their families and then of course in the institutions and the society at large, because the world really need nonviolent communication. Yesterday evening I was having I was part of a very interesting webinar organized by a group from South Africa, and that was basically to mark the 120th anniversary of Phoenix Ashram in South Africa. And there we were talking about this whole importance because of the increasing preponderance of aggressiveness and hate speech and hate narrative, how important is nonviolent communication. So if Joseph is ready, if we can start the presentation. Friends, each one of us are communicating every day, almost every moment of our lives, except possibly while sleeping. There is not a single moment of life when we are not communicating. Even when we are sitting alone in solitude, we are talking to ourselves. So in that context, communication is something, an integral part of our lives, whether it is like the food that we take in or the air that we breathe. It is an important and essential part of our life. Both our thoughts and ideas, our thoughts and ideas, our verbal communication, our non-verbal communication, all are important. And in that context, why our communication needs to be healthy, why our communication needs to be positive, why our communication needs to be respectful. We are going to start today this whole journey And after my session, we will have our friend Janet, who will be introducing to the whole realm of servant leadership, because you are all leaders, and how you are going to use the tools and strategies of non-violent communication in your leadership process. That's something going to be important. So, if Joseph, can I also share? Let me see.
Go ahead. Give me 2 more minutes. Two
No,
more minutes. I'm gonna.
I think is it okay? Are you able to see it? Are
Okay,
the
good. Yes,
parties
we can see. Good. Yes, we can see.
you are able to see the slides? Yes, please.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Earlier, actually, because of that problem with the link, I was not able to show, but now it's fine and perfect. So, we start this presentation with this very, very profound statement of Mahatma Gandhi, because each one of us are responsible for contributing to the culture of peace. And at a time in the world where we are seeing so much of conflicts happening, not just at the global level, but also at the level of our communities, in our families, so much of aggressiveness. And also within us, we are all so much aggressive, because we want to achieve such a huge number of things in a short period of time. So this whole idea that the world will live in peace only when individuals composing it make up their minds to do so. It is our responsibility to contribute towards a culture of peace. And in that case, here, this very important idea of UNESCO on peace, because it's something which is a dynamic process. Peace is a dynamic process. And what is important is that we need to engage in sincere dialogues with other individuals and communities, always, all through, whether in our families or otherwise. So the underlining statement here is sincere dialogue, and that's communication. So for peace, communication is extremely important, not only from our own inner peace, but also the outer peace. So I've already discussed with you this essential nature of communication, because as I said, we cannot not communicate. Think of a situation, for instance, you get held up in an isolated island, for instance, and there is not a single other human being, and you are alone for 1 day, 2 day, 3 day. You have a food to take or the water to drink, but you don't have anyone to actually talk to you, to communicate with you. So you will feel frustrated from within. You can't. So communication becomes extremely important. So in that context, also you must understand that the days when you have a kind of sort of verbal fisticuffs with your friend or a stranger or someone in your family or your institution. All of us are working, and conflicts are part of our life. Differences are part of our life. Then what happens? Think that I have spoken to you aggressively, or someone else have spoken to me aggressively, and it becomes a serious problem. It is a source of stress. But if there is a positive, healthy communication, it contributes to our well-being. So, uh, I will request you to kindly share in your chat box, because when we have this brief question and answer session and interaction, we will like to see your views in the chat box. You and your colleague in the office have got involved in a verbal altercation. Both of you ended up using toxic communication. What impact does it have on you? Or you and your friend are involved in a heated argument, both cursing each other. There is complete breakdown of communication. What kind of impact it has on you? It's something we need to think every day. It's something we need to realize every day. And let's share in the chat box. Also, our friend Rex has made a Facebook account of this whole program. I would request you to kindly share in that WhatsApp group your name and your views on some of these items that we are talking about. And I would request Rex to share in that Facebook, because we need to amplify the voice of nonviolent communication globally. And that can happen when we use your views and ideas in the social media, and so that more and people across the world learn about this whole idea. So this is something I think we should do to amplify our voices of nonviolent communication. So also communication, when we are thinking, the first primary form of communication is something which originates from the contents of our mind. It is our thoughts and ideas. So please, while I'm sharing this, presentation with you, please sort of reflect on how it is important, how communication originates from our mind. What are the different challenges to communicators today? Each one of us are in the business of communication. So what are the challenges we face? Increase in hate speech and hate narrative. You see, I go to a lot of schools and colleges, and many of the teachers feel that many of the students think use of toxic words and toxic language has become part of a new normal, because they get all these ideas from various Netflix, films, and various online platforms. And that is something which is a challenge to all of us. Then polarizing and divisive communication, frozen communication. It's so very important in this age of technological advancement, how our communication, because we are lacking that heart communication, and how challenge is how to promote the soul to soul communication, which can be counter narrative to hate speeches. So these are important challenges that we have. Also, here, when we are talking about violent communication, you see, I am fighting with someone. So, say for instance, our friend is there, Mansi, in this whole session. She will be taking one of the classes next week. So I have a serious, showdown with Mansi, and it is very violent. So then the problem is that the whole toxic communication leads to complete breakdown. So there is a permanent damage to the relationship. But even if there is a difference of opinion, if we are able to control our anger, if we are able to handle the communication and make it healthier, even with differences, then it is not going to be a permanent damage to the relationship. In that context, let me share with you some important ingredients of nonviolent communication. It is not, it relates to starting from our intrapersonal communication, our self-talk and inner dialogue. Because if it is toxic, then our outer communication becomes very, very toxic. So we will see it later. It is a holistic communication approach. That is something you need to know and you need to understand. It is not just the human to human communication. It's also communication with the other living beings and communication with other the nature. And in the context of the symbolic communication with nature and symbolic communication with other living beings, it becomes very important as we are in a midst of serious issues of environmental degradation and destruction of habitats of other living beings. So we have to understand the essence of human interconnectedness and human interdependence. In fact, in yesterday's program, I was talking about this whole idea of human interdependence literacy. We must understand that we are all connected to each other. We are intertwined with each other. So if you have a problem, that is my problem. That is, we must realize the essential unity of all life in this universe. And once we start being sensitive to the human interdependence approach, we will be able to handle difficult situations in a much better way. So, You see, when we are talking of non-violent communication, we are always in a process of talking to each other, communicating with each other. There are different ways we can communicate, and that's the foundation of non-violent communication. We can share, like as Abraham Lincoln has said, we can complain because rose bushes have thorn, or rejoice because thorn bushes have roses. How you do reframe? You can be direct and aggressive, but you can tell the same thing in a much better way, in a much sober way, in a much more with sobriety. You can share your point of view. It will not hurt, it will not be toxic. So we must keep in mind this very important thing. You are all leaders here in the audience, and this is something you need to learn. This is the art and science of non-violent communication. How we can reframe from the usual way that we are communicating, which will help us to connect, engagement. We need to create connections. We need to create engagement with others. We need to reach out to others, even if they have a different opinions than us. And that is the essence of non-violent conflict resolution also. Now, what are the foundational architecture of non-violent communication? Quickly, we will tell, as Rex had pointed out, the important foundational architecture, because what we are looking at, healthy communication, respectful communication, positive communication. And this is what are the 5 pillars of Mahatma Gandhi's non-violence. And let us see how simple they are and how it helps us connecting with others, even if there is a difference of opinion. The first is respect, and the essence of respectful communication, respecting each other, respecting everyone, even if we have a difference of opinion with others. So the first and the basic thing is respect. Much of the problem in the world today is because there is a lot of lack of respect for each other. If we start respecting each other, it becomes much easier to handle situations. It becomes easier to reach out to others. And respect leads to greater understanding of each other's point of view. It's so very important, because if we have a different opinion, then we must be able to understand each other. If we are not able to understand each other, there will be a conflict. So respect leads to understanding. Understanding leads to acceptance. Acceptance of each other's point of view. In a conflict, the problem happens is that we don't accept each other's point of view. We need to accept each other's point of view. And then it leads to greater importance of appreciation, positive appreciation. We are in a world where there are so much of negativity. We need to appreciate each other's. We need to appreciate the positive things that are happening around the world. And the last is compassion. So friends, let us keep these as important pillars of non-violent communication, or what we say the respectful communication or positive communication. Respect, understanding, acceptance, appreciation, and compassion. By tomorrow, I have already shared many reading materials with you, and by tomorrow, I and Mansi have also developed a very basic uh, a booklet on non-violent communication, which will be shared with you so that you can develop a greater understanding from what we are talking about. It's so very important. What is the definition of non-violent communication? You see, friends, I do a lot of research on non-violent communication. And I've been talking to a lot of people across. One of the most significant and interesting examples of non-violent communication or definition comes from the senior person here. He says, we talk of media literacy, we talk of eco-literacy. In a world where there is so much of violent communication, we need to be non-violent communication literate. I will share with you this definition in the group so that you don't you don't forget. It's basically our ability and capacity to communicate not only with ourselves, see, from the basic level, also with our families and society, and non-violence in every aspect. So also this would entail deep understanding of the art and science of non-violence and its centrality in our daily action. Also, in this definition, there is an importance of non-violent persuasion, self-discipline, and self-restraint. You see, very important. How you can reach out to people or engage with people with non-violent persuasion techniques. Also self-restraint. I'm very angry and I start, talking in a very aggressive manner. But if I'm self-restrained, I will be able to handle such difficult conversations or difficult situation in a much better way. You see, here I want to point out that there is no formula that we can give you to start, practicing non-violent communication. There cannot be A plus B equals to C. It has to come through practice. It has to come through utmost sincerity amongst us that, yes, I will practice non-violent communication, not just within myself, but in my family and in my institution. And then over a period of time, you will be able to use it. What are the different elements of non-violent communication? We will share with you all these reading materials so that it helps you to assimilate some of the ideas that I'm sharing with you and it becomes much easier. I will run through these elements of non-violent communication, which will help you quickly understand. The first is complete lack of violence in the way we communicate with others, be it verbal, non-verbal, or thoughts and ideas. I've already spoken at length in this aspect. The second is I've been telling right from the start of this session the essence of intrapersonal communication, our self-talk, inner dialogues, and imagined interaction. Because you see, the more aggressive or toxic our inner communication is, I've done a lot of research in this area on people with trauma and how their communication becomes very difficult. I've shared with Rex some of these reading materials in that, and one of those papers that research which says that the more we are in trauma, our inner communication becomes toxic and leads to further outer communication becomes toxic also. We have to see how we need to be. Inner resilience is very important and very, very crucial, because as the Vietnamese Zen master has said, peace within peace within oneself, peace in the world. So we need to work for peace within oneself. We need to work for our own inner transformation and inner resilience. The next is how we can have deep faith in humanism and integrate human values, the values of respect and understanding that I've talked about, those 5 pillars, the human values that are so very important. The next important aspect is use of appropriate and positive language. You see, there might be a situation where you need to tell something. I will give you an example. Say, for instance, in one of my books, I've written this example. Say you are a CEO of a company and you need to fire a young person who has joined recently. Probably your company is in losses, so there is no way you can keep him. So instead of just saying that you're fired, you can say, well, I know you are doing good work, but you see, because of the situation in the company, but nevertheless, I'm giving you a beautiful certificate, appreciation certificate, which will help you in a better endeavor. So it helps the other person to be managed. Appropriate and positive language, even if there is a difficult or negative things you have to say, it helps in maintaining of the relationship. The next is emotional vocabulary. It's so very important. We need to understand our feelings. We need to be emotionally literate, because there may be situations, difficult situations, distress situations, stressful situations. If we are not able to, express our feelings positively, we will become aggressive and toxic. Then I will share with you this beautiful quote of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who says language is very powerful. Language does not just describe quality. Language creates the reality it describes. We should try to take the responsibility of our action, words, and feelings and not blame others for these. So the other important elements, I request you, all these elements are very, very important, and these are the foundation of nonviolent communication. So I request you to assimilate these ideas very, very thoroughly so that you really understand the importance of nonviolent communication. Stereotyping becomes very important. Stereotyping, in the context of identity, stereotypes in the case of people coming from different cultural backgrounds, faith. If we start stereotyping, we will not be able to communicate. Many times there is a communication breakdown because of the stereotypes that we follow. So we need to avoid these kind of stereotyping. Empathetic connections, very, very important, because there seems to be empathy deficit in the world today. And I'm sure when Mansi takes the session next week, she will talk at length on how we can, resolve disputes just because by being empathetic, putting ourselves in the shoes of others and understanding their concerns, we will be able to share, be able to connect with them in a more empathetic manner. We can develop empathetic connection. Compassion is very, very important. Understanding the suffering of others. If we are able to understand the suffering of others and see what we can do to alleviate those sufferings, we will be able to have a deep relation. What the world is facing today because of this conflict is that the deep, relationship that somehow is getting missed out. So we need to develop deep relationships with people, and compassion is something we need to, practice to develop those deep relations. Gratitude, friend, we will share with you some ideas on how we can develop gratitude journal, thanking each other or thanking the other person who might have done something positive for you. Over the course of the day, we have people who have, because of whom we have benefited in some way or the other. I express my profound gratitude to GPLT and Rex and all of you who are here today, who are there to echo and voice their ideas on the importance of nonviolent communication. So we need to express gratitude, and all these things are, linked to the idea of positive psychology. They're linked to the neurosciences of our brain: empathy, compassion, gratitude, kindness. So the more we follow these, this will help us in our mental well-being. It will help us to avoid stress. It will help us to remain balanced and positive. So these are very, very important areas. So openness and flexibility in our communications. What happens? We are angry with someone, we stop talking to him or her. No, that is not the way. There cannot be any breakdown in communication. We need to open our channels of communication. Why this conflict situations in the world today? Because the opposing parties are not ready to talk to each other. There is no openness and flexibility. So whether in your family or in your institutions, if we're open and flexible in our communication, we will be able to, communicate in a very non-violent way. And the last few important dimensions of non-violent communication: connecting with needs of others. You see, many times we are not able to express our, needs which are not being fulfilled, and because of which we might be, we are behaving in a particular manner. So it's so very important to connect. We need to understand the needs of others so that we are able to connect to their needs. We are able to reach the deeper level of that particular individual because of which she or might be behaving in a particular way. So we need to look at that. Then, of course, the listening skills, deep listening skills, because when we are listening to the other person, we are growing as individuals. When we are listening to the other person, then that means the other person feels respected. We are able to connect. We are able to develop connection. We are able to develop deeper engagement with each other. Listening skills is an important dimension. And then lastly, avoidance of moralistic judgment and negative evaluative language. Very, very important dimension. Because we are all into the judgmental communication. Someone has not done well in the exam, and the teacher says, hey, you are not able to do anything. You can't do anything in life. You can never do anything better. So that it becomes demotivating. When we are judgmental, when we are using negative evaluative language, we are demotivating the other person. So we need to avoid them. So all these points that I shared with you, these are important ingredients of our nonviolent communication. And the more we practice them, you will see the difference say after a month or so, how evolved you have become as an individual, how you are able to, come out of difficult situations, how you have developed your inner resilience, how you are able to handle difficult conversations, and how you are able to develop heart communication, which is much needed today. There are these different elements which our teachers, our trainers in the next sessions will be talking about how it leads to better conflict de-escalation or strengthening of relationship, harmonious coexistence, management of negative emotions, and of course the pro-social behavior. We will give you some practical work, and we will share with you in the WhatsApp group. And as I said, we will request you to share that in the WhatsApp group, and we will request Rex to kindly share in that Facebook thing with their names, so that, as we said, we will like to amplify the voices of non-violent communication at a global level, and that's so very important. So I finish this with this beautiful quote of Dr. Martin Luther King: we must learn to live together as brothers, or we will perish together as fools. And of course, this beautiful quote of Dr. Nelson Mandela, which is one of my favorites, because it shows the essence of forgiveness, because forgiveness and reconciliation are important aspects when we are using the strategies of nonviolent communication. As I walked out the door towards a gate that lead to my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I would still be in prison. So all of you, as most of you are from Nigeria or other African countries, we must understand the essence of Ubuntu, the importance of Ubuntu as an important dimension of non-violent communication. We must learn Ubuntu. We must be able to nurture and assimilate the dimensions of Ubuntu so that we can practice non-violent communication in its truest sense. Now, if there are some questions, you're most welcome to ask. You want to ask something, Danny? Or anyone else?
Yeah, everybody's welcome to ask Dr. Vedabad's questions or add a comment.
Also, as I said, we will be sharing you a lot of reading materials in the group so that you are attuned to these ideas of non-violent communication, because we want you, like Rex was there in the previous training program that we did, the course that we did as part of GPLT, and now he himself has become a initiator of this such big program. So we want each one of you, you see, it has to be like a catalyst, like Rex was a catalyst, and to make this program, so each one of you can be catalyst to take further programs and expand the ideas of non-violent communication. So you're most welcome to ask questions, and let's make it interactive. Yes, please. I see someone raising their hand. Daniel, if you would like to talk. I'm sorry today because my throat has been completely choked. So probably I was not able to explain in that way. Two participants have raised their voice. Who are they? Yes, please. Please go ahead and ask. Please unmute yourself and ask. Yes, Femi. Yes, can you please unmute yourself and ask? Please unmute yourself. Joseph, can you help them to be unmuted? Can they ask a question?
Yes, please. Let there be a show of hands so that we can ask you to unmute, please.
Yes, please. Someone, please go ahead. Please unmute yourself and ask a question. Most welcome.
Please go ahead, Mr. Femi Olale.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I was just wondering when the lecturer was talking the other time, he was saying that we could put some things on the chat box, but I noticed that the chat is disabled. We cannot charge, or we cannot chat. You know, we can't put the things on the chat and all of that. And I was just wondering.
So sorry about that. I'll check that. I'll fix that, sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very
But
much. Now,
you
talking
ask
about
the question if you
non-violent
have-
communication, can I go ahead?
Yes,
Please go ahead.
please go ahead.
Okay. Now, talking about non-violent it is possible for individual, in this case, myself, right, having gone through this course and also knowing the importance of, you know, peace in an environment. I am willing to be peaceful. I am willing to communicate non-violently with the other party. What happened in a situation where the other party
Yeah. Are you audible? Yes, Mr. Olawe. Have we lost him? Am I audible, Joseph?
Yes, we
Yes,
can hear you. We can hear you.
I think we missed out, but I could get the essence of the question that Mr. Femi was talking about. That I may be peaceful and non-violent, but what if the other party becomes toxic or in an aggressive mood? Well, that's the reason why I shared, you know, those elements of non-violent communication. When we develop our own inner resilience, when we develop our own way of handling difficult situations, like when you are in the habit of practicing empathy, compassion, all these altruistic tendencies, when you are in the way of practicing your own peaceful and healthy inner communication. So even if there is a extreme provocation, a verbal provocation, you will not be overreacting. You will be able to handle that situation in a much, much sober way. You will be able to handle such kind of, you know, toxic situation. Because what is the human tendency? If say XYZ is very angry, say for instance, Mansi is shouting at me, and if I am not developed non-violent communication, I will shout back. But if I am using this as a part of my habit, I will be able to handle it in a much, much constructive way. And that's what is, but it can't happen in one day, it can't happen in a jiffy. It will take time. You know, when we start practicing these elements of non-violent communication in right earnest, you will be able to see yourself, you will be able to realize yourself how you can handle such difficult conversation or difficult situation. Yes, please. Mr. Ikumo, Umo, please go ahead.
All right, good morning, sir. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes,
Can you be a little louder, please?
All right. In a particular course, I got to understand that one of the characteristics of language is that language is culture bound. Language is culture bound. That people tend to behave, or people tend to act, or people tend to carry out their nuanced meanings of a particular language based on the cultural variation of language. So my question is, how do we, for instance, in countries such as Bulgaria, there are some places or regions where the non-verbal cues of nodding your head, which in our region signifies an affirmative response, but in that other region it signifies a negative response, and then vice versa, switching your head from left to right in that region signifies an affirmative response, whereas in our own region it signifies a negative response. So how do we assimilate the non-verbal cues into the concept of non-violence in communication? That is my first question. And my second question pertains to the concept of where we are trying to solve or trying to resolve issues or conflicts with people, and then they decide to employ the concept of avoidance and denial, where they tend to avoid the concept or the conflict as in question or as pertains to what is happening. So they tend to deny or avoid the fact that there is a problem that is ongoing between them and yourself. So, and then you are trying to see how to resolve issues, but they are not coming out to try to see how to also settle that conflict or the particular issue with you. So how do you, what method do you employ in that situation?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, actually, brother, as I said, I was not able to follow because I really apologize for that. If there is someone who could understand the question and make it clear for me kindly, Nikki ma'am, could you understand our brother's question because I was not able to follow. There seemed to be some disturbance. So in that case, if someone had followed, if they can tell me briefly about what exactly our brother was asking. I really apologize for that. So, Nikki, ma'am, could you follow? As I said, there was a little problem there. Nikki, ma'am, or Mansi, is there anyone who had
The
followed?
voice is unclear, sir.
Sorry?
Even I couldn't follow it because the voice was unclear. So I think
Okay. If you
we
can
need to use the
kindly
chat box
write
for
in
that.
the chat box so that it becomes easier for us to understand, please.
All right, please.
Yeah.
Please, can I repeat myself?
Yes.
Please, can you hear me now? Is it clear?
Yes, it's clear now. Yes, please go ahead, sir.
All right. I was saying that my first question was pertain to the concept of regional variations in language. So in a particular course, I got to understand that one of the characteristics of language is that language is culture bound. That means different regions and different cultures have a nuanced understanding and application of languages. For instance, in nonverbal cues, and also, for instance, in a country such as Bulgaria, we understand that when you are nodding your head, in that region, it signifies a negative response. But in my own region, it signifies an affirmative response, which means yes to what you're saying. But when you are shaking your head from left to right, vice versa, it means in their own region, it means that it is an affirmative response. Whereas in my own region, it signifies a negative response, which is no. So now my question is, due to the issue, or I say issue, or due to language cultural variations or language stylistic variation in particular regions, how do we assimilate that? How do we integrate that in resolving or in the process of non-verbal communication? That was my first question. And then my second question was in the line of you trying to resolve the particular issue with somebody. At least you've tried to recognize the fact that there's a problem between you and somebody, and then you are trying to resolve that. But the person decides to employ the strategy of avoidance and denial, where he or she decides not to come up plain or to recognize the fact that there is a problem that is ongoing that needs to be resolved. So in that situation, what can you do about it?
Well, brother, I think it's a very fantastic question. The first one, essence of culture. That's the reason, we need to be more culturally literate, culturally sensitive to the language, both verbal and the non-verbal communication or language that is used in different cultures across the world. And we need to be sensitive to what the other person is using. Say, for instance, you had given the example of Bulgaria and yourself, two opposite kind of a thing. But if, it is so very practical when we are using non-violent communication. So if you are, reaching out or having conversation with someone from Bulgaria, which without a knowledge and understanding of non-violent communication, there may be a situation when the person from the other culture, with his or her, non-verbal communication, it may be appropriate in their culture, but inappropriate in your culture. So you might end up becoming aggressive or, becoming aggressive in your responses. But if you are attuned to using non-violent communication in your daily life, and because you are already into that whole zone of respectful communication, and we have already talked about the essence of avoidance of stereotyping, so we will be able to handle such situations in a much positive way, because we will be sensitive to the cultural dimensions of the other person coming from another cultural background, and we will not become perturbed, or we will not become aggressive. So that possibly answers your first question. And the second question is about the essence of non-violent communication, conflict resolution. When we use all these elements as our strategies of non-violent communication, even in a situation of conflict, as I said, you will realize when you start using them in the truest sense, when you start using even at least some portion of it. So you will be able to handle people who are in a complete diametrically opposite to your own views. You will not, sometimes, of course, avoidance is okay, but like over a period of time, it's always good to communicate and get out of that whole differences of opinion. But if we are using toxic language, we will aggravate the situation. That when we are using these tools and strategies of nonviolent communication, we will be able to have a more positive outcome, and there will be a transformation of relationship. This is basically possibly, if you start working from today and from possibly after a month, I'm sure you will have a different feedback than what you have today. And this is my own personal experience, I can tell you. Yes, please.
Hello, I just need to give us 1 minute. Dr. Petro, are you able to come on now?
There are questions, ma'am, from Mr.
Dr.
Okafor
Petro?
and Dr. Brenda.
Yes, Dr. Petro needs to come on now from the Rotary. Dr. Petro, can you hear me?
I think he's not there, ma'am. We can possibly give
Okay, all right,
chance
carry
to
on.
Brenda.
Carry on. Yeah, carry on,
Dr.
Dr.
Brenda,
Petro.
Dr. Brenda, please, and then
Okay.
Mr. Okafor. Dr.
Thank you
Brenda,
very
please.
much for giving me. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to ask this question. I would like you to give me illustrations of what you mean when you say non-violent intrapersonal communication. I'd like to have practical, like illustrations to guide me, please.
Okay. Also here, I would request Rex to kindly share, or I can also share some of these reading materials that I shared with him. When we are talking of intrapersonal communication, Dr. Brenda, it entails our self-talk. That is, I'm talking, I like say, I've not done well in the exam, and I will say, oh shit, I failed. I'm talking to myself, self-talk. The second is our inner dialogues. So dialogue with me. So dialogue can be, I'm standing in front of the mirror and having a dialogue with myself on what I could do to help myself develop a better understanding of, say, peace building. So, and then the third is the imaginary interactions. Say, I have a friend, and I have a fight with her, and then within my own self, I start having an imaginary dialogue with friend. If she was there in front of me, what I am going to talk to her, and what I am expecting and hoping she would tell me. So with these three important elements of intrapersonal communication, I will tell you, like when we are in a situation of trauma, say for instance, XYZ has faced some kind of a relationship trauma, then my own research says that the intrapersonal communication becomes very toxic, because we are in a turmoil. We are in a complete situation of a mess. We are stressed. So then automatically our inner communication, we start blaming ourselves. There is an element of blame. There is an element of guilt, guilty feeling. There is an element of low self-esteem and low self-worth. When an individual gets into a situation of trauma or any kind of difficult thing. But from my own experience, like I will share with you that study in the WhatsApp group. We work with these individuals who were in trauma because first we need to promote the idea of loving kindness, that is self-love, self-empathy, self-compassion, self-kindness. Unless and until we are able to practice this self, we are able to practice our own self-compassion, our own way to practice self-empathy, self our self-worth and esteem will remain low. Only when we start, we can't love the other person if we are not loving ourselves. If we are hating ourselves, if we have those guilty feelings, we will never be able to connect with the other person. So it has to start from the self for greater inner resilience so that we are able to handle such kind of a situation. So in this particular study, we started working with them, and after a month or so, much of that toxic intrapersonal communication that I was talking about, it came down and they were more calmer, they were more peaceful. I hope I answered that. And of course, you can read about that whole study that I've done when I share it in the group.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have Mr. Okafor to talk. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Obichukwu Okafor from Abuja Downtown, District 9127. Please, my question, Mr. Kundu, thank you for the interaction and the teaching of today. My question is, what are the challenges that could impair a non-violence communication during peace building?
During what?
Peace building.
Peace?
Peace building.
Okay, peace, during peace situation.
Yeah, what are the challenges that could weaken a peace building during a non-violent communication?
Well, friend, you see, I shared with you right at the beginning some of the challenges to communicators today. Number one challenge is increase of the hate speech and intolerance, hate narrative. And it's not just at a global level, it starts from the local level, it starts from our families. So that is a big challenge to non-violent communication, hate narrative, intolerant communication, hate communication, so on and so forth. The second is the increasing technologization of our work, of our lives. Almost all the time till we are asleep, we are involved in technology, we are involved with smartphones and all. As a result of it, our communication with others becomes very, very minimal. Our communication with our friends, it is all in the machine language. We are chatting. We are not having that one-to-one communication. And as a result, which I shared with you, it has become very frozen. It lacks emotions. It lacks the whole idea of empathy and passion. So that is again a big challenge to non-violent communication. The increasing technologization of our space, increasing technologization of. You see, many people, someone's relative have passed away, and she or he is posting in the Facebook, and without thinking, we start liking that. How can we like the passing away of someone? So that becomes a real problem. So that is again a challenge to non-violent communication. However, having said that, once we start practicing, once we come out of this whole way of frozen communication, once we use non-violent communication as our strategy, we will be able to promote the heart-to-heart and soul-to-soul communication. Yes, please.
Thank you, Dr. Vedabas. Janet is ready.
George Clifford, ma'am, there is someone called George Clifford.
Yeah, after George, we are announcing Janet will take over. George, ask your question.
All right. Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you, Mr. Kundu. My question is a follow-up to the first question asked by, I think, Mr. Femi, which you responded to. So the question is, in a situation where you are trying to communicate non-violently with a group, and you've tried all the systems, you've implied all the factors and every other thing to promote non-violent communication with this group, but they seem not to be yielding to your own style of communication. If you made several efforts, is it right for you at a particular point in time to take a walk? That is my question. Is it right to take a walk when you tried all effort, but they are not yielding to you communicating non-violently? Thank you.
Yeah, can you again kindly repeat the last portion? There was some.
Okay, I said when you try to communicate non-violently with a group of people, you've applied every system, every technique in order to promote non-violent communication with them, but they are not yielding to your style of communication. Is it right for you at a particular point in time to take a walk? You know what I mean?
So, yes, I think you see, the thing is that we can't change, we can't force changes on others. Can do our very best. We can give our more than 100% to bring people together. If even then nothing is happening, we can't, compromise with our self-respect or self-dignity. And if we are continuously being abused or insulted or indulged in toxic behavior, we could go for a walk. We could walk out in a very, very positive way. We need not be aggressive. We know, the important point I told you about the essence of human interdependence. If we are human interdependent literate, we will walk out of the whole situation of that group in a more positive way instead of, a bitterness, leaving behind those whole roll of bitterness behind. So possibly that is the way, because we can't be violent in forcing others to listen to us, or we can't be using violence to force people to adopt our own non-violent behavior, because that will again be violent, I suppose. Yes, I think now Janet is already there, and I think Janet. Hello, Janet, you are there?
Yes, Dr. Kundu. Hi.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Vedabas. And now Janet will be taking over the next half. So welcome, Janet. The floor is now yours.
Thank you, Dr. Nikki. Can you just give me a heads up on the timing, please? Until when are we supposed to keep the call going on? Hi, Dr. X. I hope you are doing well. Are we going to have it until 12:30 today?
What do you say?
I'm just asking about the time. Are we going to end it at 12 or 12:30? So that
12:30. 12:30. Yeah.
All right. Brilliant. Thank you so much. So, greetings, everyone. You might be joining from different parts of the world. So I'm actually currently in the United Kingdom. So it's good morning to me. But to several others, I know for some of you, it's good afternoon. Some of you, it's good evening. So wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us today. And today, in the morning, we have discussed the session before me. We have discussed about nonviolent communication and why it is important. And I'm trying to use this next number of minutes. I will be speaking for the next 30 minutes, and then we can have some question and answer session. So for the next 30 minutes, what I'm trying to do is to link what you have listened to, what you have learned on nonviolent communication into servant leadership, which is a unique concept of leadership. Especially, I'm very sure as Rotary leaders, you are practicing servant leadership. And I would like to explain to you a little bit of theory, and then you can build your expertise on what servant leadership is and how you can connect nonviolent communication into servant leadership, and how you can enhance your communication as a servant leader by practicing nonviolent communication, or rather by combining nonviolent communication tenets and the tenets of servant leadership together. So my name is Janit Pereira, and I'm from the United Kingdom at the moment. I'm living in the United Kingdom. I'm originally from Sri Lanka, and for the last 10 years, I have been working in the field of peace building and trying to work as a lecturer, educator, and as a peace builder. So first of all, I'll try to discuss or bring to you a concept which is about greatness. So I would like to hear from you, or I would like to get some responses on the chat. What is greatness? How would you define greatness? Who is a great leader? So any responses? You can put it on the chat, or you can voice it out. What is greatness according to you? You are free to unmute and speak, or you can put it on the chat. What is greatness according to you? Anyone? Please go ahead.
Okay, for me, a great leader is one who sees the way, leads the way, and directs the way. That's just the way I will put it.
Thank you so much. Leading the way. All right. Thank you. Anybody else? I think Obichukwu Ovakar is also raising the hand. Please unmute yourself and share your quick thoughts on what is greatness.
Okay, I would say a great leader is someone, good afternoon and welcome once again. A great leader is someone who has character in leading. A great leader is someone who has empathy with his followers. A great leader is one who is ready to take risk for his followers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think what you just shared, the leader is for the followers. The leader is trying to serve the followers. Now, if you look at the concept of leadership, from the very beginning, leadership has been based on power. Leadership has been based on dominance. Leadership has been based on authority. But over the years, this concept of leadership has changed. Now, when we consider a leader is not just a person who is going to have power. The leader is not a person who has authority, control, dominance. The leader has to play a further extended role. So that is why we discuss about servant leadership, because servant leaders are leaders who have extended beyond the framework of authority, dominance, control, and power. So I'm going to share with you a very short video. I hope the sound will come. If not, please let me know if the sound is not coming. Let me check whether I can ensure the sound is coming. Share computer sound is off at the moment, so I'll make it available, right? So I hope you can see my screen.
True greatness comes not by favoritism, but by fitness. And so Jesus gave us a new norm of greatness. If you want to be important, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. If you want to be great, wonderful. But recognize that he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. That's a new definition of greatness. By giving that definition of greatness, it means that everybody can be great, because everybody can serve.
Were you able to listen to and look at the video? Can you let me know? Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
All right.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Janet.
Amazing. So if you look at this video, you can see that the concept of a leader, the concept of greatness has changed over the years. So if you hear from the voice of Martin Luther King Jr., you can hear that the sense of greatness is no longer having power, no longer having authority. It is about being of service. So that is why we bring out the concept of servant leadership. I would like you to look at this video one more time before we move on, because this is a very powerful message, and I think it will echo with what you are doing as a Rotary Peace leader, a Rotarian. I believe this is what you are made for, and this is how you can become great. This is how you become a great person.
True greatness comes not by favoritism, but by fitness. And so Jesus gave us a new norm of greatness. If you want to be important, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. If you want to be great, wonderful. But recognize that he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. That's a new definition of greatness. By giving that definition of greatness, it means that everybody can be great, because everybody can serve.
Right. Thank you so much. So I think now you understand that greatness can be achieved by becoming a servant. This is rather a very paradoxical concept. But let me discuss what is servant leadership first. So the term servant leadership was coined by Robert K. Greenleaf. I'm just giving a little bit of history so you can better understand. And it appears to be a paradox. A paradox means, when you say leader, the opposite would be a follower or a servant rather. If somebody is the master, who we normally think to be the leader, the other party becomes the servant. So it is paradoxical, but this gives a unique perspective on what is leadership. As a lecturer of leadership for quite some time, what I've been always telling is leadership is a two-way process. It's not a single direction or linear process. It's a two-way process where the leader is there because there are followers, and the followers are there because there are leaders. So it's a two-way process. And the problem that exists in most of the context is that the leader assumes dominance, control, power, authority over the followers. And in that process, the needs, the wants, the demands of the followers are mostly forgotten. This has been in the context of the community, local community, political leadership, international leadership, and that has been the problem. So Robert K. Greenleaf is providing the solution that we should not have the concept of leadership alone without due consideration of the followers. So who is a servant? A servant is a person who is there to serve. So if you embed leadership as a position to serve, that makes real sense. So that is why we need servant leaders. And servant leaders have the tenets of nonviolent communication. I'll be discussing this further on, but if you are a servant leader, if you want to serve, how do we serve? You will serve by helping everyone, helping each and every follower that you can, working for the betterment of your followership. So Robert K. Greenleaf says, the best leaders are clear, they light the way, and in the process, Let each person know that what they do makes a difference. So this is a phrase where we can understand that the servant leader is following the people towards the correct direction or guiding the followers through the right direction, but not assuming control, power, authority, but having a very friendly relationship. And that friendly relationship is fueled by nonviolent communication. So if we move forward, actually the concept of servant leadership goes back into long time back. I would say that it has existed decades and decades and centuries. But the term servant leadership was coined by Greenleaf. So how did he come up with this concept? It's an interesting story because, what happened was that in 1968, Greenleaf and his wife Esther, they were driving back from Prescott College in Arizona, where he had seminars on leadership. So he was invited to do some guest lectures in the Arizona Prescott College. And, things were not very much, going on well because Esther, Greenleaf told to the wife Esther that, the seminars were not very much successful because the faculty disliked them and they were trying to undermine the guest speaker. And the Vietnam was also going on in the American context, and people were not following the leaders. People were not trusting the leaders, and there was a problematization of leadership worldwide. So during the drive, Greenleaf remembered Hermann Hesse's novel, Journey to the East, about a group of men on a journey to the East. And there was this servant, Leo, who keeps the group together with his spirit and presence. And when Leo vanishes, the group falls apart. So later the narrator tells us that Leo was actually the leader of the order sponsoring the journey, but his behavior was as if he was the servant because he wanted to serve. So there is a big role in the servant. So this is what Frick in Greenleaf's biography writes about servant leadership. Suddenly, a two-word phrase popped into Greenleaf's mind, servant leader. That said it all. It described what he was trying to communicate to the people at Prescott. They should all lead by serving each other. True servants operate out of love. True leaders seek to serve those who are led. People who serve are, in fact, leaders and followers. This one paradoxical phrase seemed to sum up the goal of his entire career: to lead through service and encourage people and institutions to serve first. In fact, he described, in spite of all his personal foibles and internal contradictions, the underlying theme of his whole life. So you can see what I have highlighted in bold. What is the role of a leader? Who is a servant leader? Servant leaders lead by serving each other. True servants operate out of love because, in a good master and servant relationship, the servant should have love towards the master. Then only the servant can really serve the master. Similarly, if you are the leader, you need to be a servant. How do you operate? You operate out of love towards your followers, towards your community. And you try to serve those who you are leading, not just to have power, control, dominance. And I think as Rotary leaders, this is what you are practicing. So we can discuss further what your thoughts are on this later on, but this is my perspective. So let's discuss further. But when you define servant leadership starts with the natural desire to serve others. Why are you a Rotarian? You can ask that question. Do you have a natural desire to serve others? If so, you are a servant leader. If a person chooses to lead after deciding to serve, you first want to serve, then you want to take a leadership. Not that you want to be a leader and serve. Then you are a servant leader. And the key difference is the servant leaders focus on meeting others' highest priority needs. So you can understand that if you are a servant leader, you are trying to focus on meeting the needs of the followers. It's not that just you are leading, you lead in order to serve the followers. So I think the concept of servant leadership is very important to help the followers, or in a company, the employees, to be well understood so that their needs and well-being can be met. And servant leaders focus on helping the growth and development of the followers. And then they always challenge the followers to do better. So at the end of the day, through the servant leadership model, employees or followers are healthier, happier, more engaged, and more productive. So this is why servant leadership is very important in the community, in the society, even within business organizations. Now you need to understand what are the components, what are the elements of servant leadership. There are 10 in number, and most of these elements are very much and directly relevant to nonviolent communication. So there are 10 you can see here: awareness, listening, empathy, foresight, conceptualization, persuasion, community building, stewardship, healing, commitment to the growth of people. I think if you are a Rotary leader, you are following these 10 characteristics. If not, you can let me know later on, but this is what I think, and you can share your experiences later on. So let's take one by one. Let's take the first one as listening. If you are a servant leader, you need to listen to the followers. In nonviolent communication, number one, before communicating, is to listen. If you don't listen, can you communicate? There are two people talking. If the second person is not listening to the first person, the communication is not going to correctly and smoothly follow on. Why? Because communication demands the recipient of the message to be very much attentive to the communicator. Then only the recipient can communicate another viewpoint. So nonviolent communication emphasizes on listening carefully to the communicator. And that is the same with servant leadership. If you are a servant leader, you need to prioritize listening first. People will come to you to tell their opinions, to tell their grievances, to tell their needs, to tell their demands. That means you need to have a very good ear. Without a good ear, you can't be a servant leader. So by listening, servant leaders recognize and validate the followers' viewpoints. So you can see listening is very important to you as a leader. Listening is very important to you as a nonviolent communicator, because nonviolent communication begins with trying to listen to the needs, demands of the other party. In this case, their followers. The second thing, very important, empathy. Empathy is the core of nonviolent communication. You communicate nonviolently because you need to build empathy. You should be able to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Without that, you cannot be a nonviolent communicator. Without that, you cannot be a servant leader as well. Empathy means understanding another person's perspective and seeing the world from their point of view. So empathetic servant leaders show that they truly grasp what their followers are thinking and feeling. So if your leader is empathetic, you begin to feel my needs are being listened to. I am understood. If that is the case, you will become a better follower. So the second characteristic, empathy, is very important, and it is both a core component of nonviolent communication as well as servant leadership. The third one is healing. Why do we communicate nonviolently? Because if we give space to our initial, I would say that is a reaction, not a response. If you initially react to what the other person is telling, you are not healing. You are disturbing the healing processes. So in nonviolent communication, a main outcome, a main priority is to heal the other party. They might communicate with their rough, negative experiences. You need to heal them through your communication. Servant leaders should be healers. You need to heal other people, heal the wounds. When I say wounds, mental, emotional, psychological, social wounds. You care about the well-being of your followers. You try to help them to overcome their personal problems. And according to Greenleaf, this healing process happens two ways. The leader heals the followers heal the leader, because you try to understand each other. And that is very important. The fourth quality, or the fourth component, is awareness. If you are a servant leader, you need to be able to understand your physical, social, political surroundings. And awareness is knowing about you and how your actions are affecting other people. Then only you can be a servant leader. And when you have this sense of awareness, you can always take a step back and see about yourself, your practice objectively, and understand your role in the context of any situation, in the bigger picture. So awareness means that you know who you are. You know your strengths, you know your weaknesses, you know the threats, you know the opportunities. By being aware, you can become a better servant leader. By being aware of what's happening, you can utilize nonviolent communication to become a better leader. Fifth one, as a leader, I think this is very important. Persuasion. You need to persuade others, convince others, convince the followers to do better. How do you persuade? Using clear and persistent communication. Now, I'll give you one example. If you tell your little child not to draw on the wall in a very forceful manner, the child will not listen to you. The child will continue drawing on the wall. Let's take an example. The father is seeing that a son is drawing some pictures using a piece of chalk or color pencil or pen on the wall. And the father is using, harsh words and trying to correct the son. The son will be a little bit scared, but because the father is telling no all the time, he will do it. But if the father goes to the son and emotionally deals with the son, now you are a big child. This is not what you should do. Let's do this on a piece of paper. Come, I will also draw with you. You also draw, I also draw. We will do it on a piece of paper. And then you try to communicate in a non-violent manner. The son will be persuaded. So persistent and clear communication is very important to convince others. And nonviolent communication is going to help you. It is unlike force, caution, because you are not using your authority. You are not forcing compliance. You try to explain to the other party why this is the need of the other. You try to be non-judgmental to create change. So as a servant leader, you use persuasion. Your words have power. Words have power. So you have to use the words in a very powerful and meaningful manner. Number 6, as a leader, this is something very important, conceptualization. You need to be a visionary, in other words. Who is the person providing the clear goals and direction to the followers? You are. So therefore, you need to understand the context. You need to conceptualize what is going to happen for the next day, next month, next week, next month, next years. You conceptualize, you provide the followers with a clear goal and direction. And using nonviolent communication, you can clearly communicate it. Number 7 is foresight. If you are a leader, you need to have foresight. Foresight means you can foresee the future. If it is unpredictable, still you can prepare to face the worst circumstances. So if you are a servant leader, you should be able to have foresight. How do you develop foresight? One thing is you learn from your past experiences. A leads to B, B leads to C. You can understand from your past experiences. If you are a leader, you know how you can navigate the uncharted waters, unknown seas. So it's important that you develop foresight as a servant leader. Number 8 is stewardship. You have been given a role. You are a steward. You have to accept responsibility. You need to take responsibility. You are a trustee. You have been given some level of power, control, dominance, but it's not to exploit it. It's because people trust you. So you need to be a steward. You need to take responsibility and you need to understand my decisions, my actions are going to affect on other people. So it's very important that as a servant leader, you become a steward. You take responsibility over any task which you are leading. Your followers are there to support you. Your followers are there to do what is required, but you need to take the steering wheel. You need to take the responsibility of keeping everyone connected. So you become a steward. Number 9, as a servant leader, what are you trying to do? You are trying to ensure that you are committed to the growth of the people. Followers are there. And when followers are there, what should you do? You need to help them to build their skills, their knowledge. Without that commitment, it's very difficult to advance the followers' lives. So as a servant leader, it is very important to be committed to the growth of the people. So you provide them opportunities for personal and professional growth, helping them to develop career development opportunities should be given, teaching them or providing them opportunities to learn new skills, showing personal interest in their ideas, and including them in the decision-making processes. I think this is very important as a nonviolent communicator as well. Either with nonviolent communication, you will always try to involve the followers in the decision-making processes. So you are inclusive as a leader. And the 10th, or the last characteristic, is connected to what we discussed in the 9th. But this is about building a community. What are you doing at Rotary? What are you doing as a Rotarian? You are building a community where people share the interests, goals, feeling connected and united. And you try to value yourself and everybody in the process. And therefore, servant leaders are building communities to offer a safe place where individuals feel connected to others while also expressing their own unique selves. So, if you look at this model of servant leadership, which I have taken, you can see that the servant leader, if following what we just discussed, it will lead to these outcomes of follower performance and growth, organizational performance, and societal impact. So in your Rotary clubs, in your Rotary foundation, do you see, because of servant leadership, followers are performing, growing? Do you see, as an organization, as a club, are you performing well? Are you making societal impact? If I am to look at it, it is through following the model of servant leadership. Next, I would like to give you some examples of very famous servant leaders. I'm pretty sure you know who these dignitaries are. They have tried to make change overall in the world. I believe you know Mahatma Gandhi, because his contribution to nonviolent communication has been immense. Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, Dalai Lama, Desmond Tutu, then Florence Nightingale, Martin Luther King, Abraham Lincoln, Jacinda Ardern, Malala Yousafzai. These are some of the examples of servant leaders, because they always try to put the interest of their followers before themselves. So with the interest of time, I would like to quickly go through the strengths of servant leadership. As I told you, there's an altruistic focus, because you are always thinking of the followers. You can predict how your employees or followers perform. You will have a follower-centric influence. You consider the multiple stakeholders. You try to help everyone. And contextually, especially in the work that you do in Rotary, I would say there is contextual effectiveness. So there's a little bit of criticism on servant leadership as well. You know, every good thing has some disadvantage as well. So the fact that it is a paradoxical term, servant leader, it does not quickly go aligning with each other. That is one criticism. Then contextually, is it going to be effective? I think with your experience, you can answer that. And then how do the leader conceptualize being service to the followers? And sometimes the followers looking at the leader in a different manner. So conceptualization of service. Service can be different from person to person. So that is a challenge. So what are your resolutions? I would like to ask you as a Rotary leader. Do you think you are a servant leader? I would like to hear from you in the next 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. Do you think you are a servant leader? If so, how can you improve yourself as a servant leader? If not, how can you become a servant leader? So you can discuss about servant leadership within Rotary and the work you do. So I would like to end my presentation before moving on to the questions and answer session and your reflections. Great leaders are there, right? Great leaders are there, but great leaders inspire greatness in others. So I think that is what you are trying to achieve. So thank you so much. Now I would be open for your reflections. Let me know what you think. And if you have any questions, I am ready to answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Janet, for you did it. You cleared the road, and it's very impactful. We appreciate you. You're a scholar and inspirative mentorship. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rex. I would like to hear from the participants here. What do you think about servant leadership? Do you practice it? Do you have any similar viewpoints or any contradictory viewpoints? If you have any questions, please let me know. Yes, I can see Professor Sabnaga. Please go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Okay. Okay. Am I audible now?
Yes, yes, you are. Please go ahead,
Thanks
sir.
very much. Yeah, Janet, thanks very much. So much learning, so much knowledge impacted. Thank you very much. I'm looking at the words servant leader. I could also rearrange that to leader servant. Is it right to use them interchangeably? If not, does that suggest any has been more important than the other?
So I think you are raising a very good point. Servant leader and a leader servant. So I think there is a distinction. When you say servant leader, like servant is coming as the adjective, I would say first I would try to explain it to you in a grammatical point of view. Servant leader, so you focus on the leader, but the adjective is servant leader. So as the leader, you are trying to serve, right? So that is servant leadership. If you try to use the other way around, leader servant, servant is the noun and leader becomes the adjective. So that brings out another sense of follower, a follower or a servant who is leading. So leader servant. So you are a leading servant. That means you are trying to lead while you are a servant. So I would not use the words interchangeably. When you say servant leader, it gives out the context and the idea that you are the leader, but you try to lead by serving. But if you use the two words in the other way, it can mean that you are a servant who is trying to lead. So it will give a different connotation. But said that, it's important that we try to even embed leadership qualities in our followers. So if you are a servant, I would use the word follower given the negative connotation given to servant. If you are a leader follower or a leader servant, as Professor Sabnaga told, if you are a follower, you need to also develop your leadership qualities because followers will become leaders one day. Every leader has been a follower before becoming a leader. We all had leaders before we came up into leadership positions. So it's important that we understand that we give opportunity for the leaders, opportunity for the followers to improve their leadership skills so that they can take on leadership responsibilities. So I would say, this is my personal viewpoint, when you have the term servant leader, it gives the sense that you are the leader and you are serving as a leader therefore, hence a servant leader. But if you use it the other way, it might give a different connotation because the word servant in the servant leader concept forms as an adjective to the noun of a leader. I hope it is clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any others? I can see another person who has raised the hand. Abdul Shittu. Abdul, you can go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, can you hear me, please? Yeah, well done. Distinguished speaker. I just want to share my perspective on how Rotarians see servant. Every Rotary leader is a servant leader because we're leading a group of volunteers who are bringing their time, their treasure, and their talents to the table. And you have to lead them in such a way that you encourage them further to give. You're also going to be accountable by giving good stewardship of your office. So it is about the sacrifices you make. It is about providing service both to your club members and to the communities that you serve. So the concept of servant leadership is actually something we're quite familiar with, but when we learn more about it in seminars like this, it reinforces our integration of the concept of servant leadership in our
Thank you, Abdul, for your words. Due to some technical difficulties, I think it was not very clear. But thank you for sharing your wisdom. But I would like to hear from others as well. What are your thoughts about servant leadership? And as Rotarians, do you practice servant leadership? So, any others who would like to share their wisdom with us? Yes, Oyodeji Orengiji.
Thank you very much. Good day, everyone from all over the world. Thank you, Mr. Janet, for the presentation. It's quite insightful and knowledgeable. Well, as a Rotarian, my name is Ayo Olagunju for pronunciation. From Rotary Club of Ilorin GRA, District 91226. Now, as a Rotarian, we are all volunteers. And in becoming a leader, to volunteer, you also have to volunteer to become a leader. To now be able to work with other volunteers that are not paid salary or any allowances, you need to be an example by yourself. You need to be ready to serve so that you'll be able to use that to motivate and encourage other volunteers who are members of your club to be able to serve along with you. So if you want to be a bossy leader, you can do that in your office where everybody is hired. and paid salaries, and they have MOP, rule of engagement. Yes, it is true that in Rotary we have rule of engagement, we have our MOP, and then we say it's a volunteering and a voluntary organization. However, we are not being paid. The payment is just your own satisfaction as a volunteer. So for that reason, in Rotary, for those who are leaders, presidents, assistant governors, district governors, and the likes, they need to be able to be empathetic, which is one of the things that a servant leader must have. You must listen, you must be able to empathize again, because people are leaving their normal job to come and serve voluntarily. So we, as a successful Rotary leader, you must be a servant leader. So I thank you very much for this opportunity to talk. And I thank you so much for the presentation so far today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. I think what you said is really important, because especially when it comes to local community movements, volunteering movements, the concept of servant leadership has a lot of contributions. Emma, would you like to speak? Emma Nagada Ruben?
Yes, I'm trying to reach out to Dr. Pietro also. He's not picking his call. Maybe he boxed up. Maybe after this close out, I'll reach him later. I've texted him and I've called him. He's not picking. Maybe he's into another thing. Maybe he's preoccupied. So I thank you, everyone. Dr. Nikki, for providing the platform. Thank you, Dr. Kundu, Ambassador Janet, and all the Rotary presidents and the district leaders for coming up. This is a great opportunity. We will continue by next Saturday and the other Saturday. Please do feel free to ask questions the way it appears to you. You have professional leaders and professional trainers here. So come up with your questions, maybe after all or now, because even though our time is fast spent, we'll be closing out so that today is Saturday, other people will go and do what they're supposed to do. I thank everyone. I remain yours sincerely, Rex Uche. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Are there any other questions? Okay, so Dr. Rex has added everybody into the WhatsApp group. So if you have any comments or you have any questions, then you can put that in the WhatsApp group that where Dr. Rex added you. So again, my sincere apologies for the delay with the Zoom problem. We're sorry about that. However, we managed to overcome the challenges, and the day then went according to plan. So thank you, everybody. We will see you next week at the same time, and this time we hope there'll be no hitches. Rex, from our hearts, thank you so much. You are truly a servant leader of note, and we appreciate and value you. Dr. Vedabas and Janet are servant leaders, absolutely. And we sincerely appreciate your dedication to making a change. You see, the magic of nonviolence communication. It intentionally asks, what can be done to demonstrate peace building? What can be done? So the purpose of all of this training is to help you to answer that question by saying, what can be done? So I'm very proud of all of you for continuing and not leaving the Zoom. You all came back on. Thank you very much. God bless to everybody. We will see you next week, same time. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're grateful.